Hey, everybody. All right. Welcome back. It's been about a month, I guess. I hope you've all been well. I'm buried in snow up here in New York. I've been freezing my behind off and buried in snow, but it looks like things are looking up. So anyway, it's great to be back. And as my sister, Yoshiaki Ono from Japan. Good morning, Ono. It's great to see you. Great friend of mine from Japan. Hey, Dave. Hey, Jason. What's happening? JC. Jose is here. Fantastic. Hey, Paul. How's it going? Hey, from Vancouver. Hey, man. Hey, Paul. Myron Walden, Montclair, New Jersey. That's a bad dude. Myron, welcome. Hey, Aaron. How are you, man? Great to see you again. Everybody's here. All right, cool. So first of all, I wanted to thank everybody for the good vibes you've been giving me on my new album, Higher. And it's been a thrill how it's going so far. I had a nice chart experience with my first single and going to get to a second single in a couple months. But thank you all for that. Hey, Rich. Hey, Carrie. Hey, Cyrus. Yolanda, what's happening? Hey, M, how are you? Great to see you. Dante, how are you? From Argentina. Love Argentina, man. I haven't been there in a while. I need to get back. Hey, John, how are you? From Chicago. Hey, Jamie, good to see you. Yeah, my special guest tonight is an epic presence, but we're gonna turn to that in just a second. So anyway, hey Dave, hey Richard from the UK, fantastic, man, I love it. You're back up in the middle of the night. I thought you had to work now, Richard. So you're just tossing caution to the wind, right? It's great to have you here, man. Hey Erico, how are you from Japan? Hey Hector from Texas, how are you? Great to see everybody. All right, so. Thrilled to be back. It's great everyone's here. I'm gonna pivot. My guest tonight is a fantastic saxophone player. He is a significant presence in the contemporary saxophone, contemporary jazz fundament. I've known him a really long time, and I've got a story I want to get to right away after we get him in the room and talk about that. But I've known Kirk for a very, very long time, maybe even longer than he realizes. But it's a thrill to have him here. I'm graced by his presence and willingness to be here with us tonight. I'm going to start by playing some music. And the first cut I'm going to play is from Romance Language. It's a 2012 album from Kirk. This features Kirk and his brother Kevin. Beautiful track, beautiful expression of Kirk's vibe. So let me go to that. We'll spin that track, and then we'll bring Kirk in the room and do some hanging out. All right, so everybody hang. Gonna switch to stereo, and here we go.
I should write a book for you that brought me fame and fortune too. That book would be like my heart and me, dedicated to you. If I should paint a picture too that showed the loveliness of you, my art would be like my heart and me, dedicated to you, because your love is the beacon that lights up my way to you, because with you I know a lifetime could be just one heavenly day. And if I should find a twinkling star, one half so wondrous as you are, that star would be like my heart and me, dedicated to you, dedicated to you, dedicated to you.
Wow, that is so beautiful. That is such a well-made record, and such an incredible saxophone performance and vocal performance. But you can appreciate everything that's going on there. Every part of that record, the arrangement, the performances, the engineering, that is high-end stuff. So anyway, I guess that's so beautiful. Without further ado, I'm going to bring Gerald. Awesome, man. Great to see you here, Gerald Albright. Look at that, Kirk. Hey, Gerald, hang around for a second. I'm gonna bring Kirk into the space right now, and he can say hello to me and Gerald and everybody else. Daniel, bring Kirk on in. There he is, the great Kirk Whalum. And I say that directly when I say the great Kirk Whalum. I mean that directly and specifically. Man, that's so beautiful. It's such a tall order to step into that Train Johnny Hartman space and do your own thing on it. And it's so successful. It's so beautiful, right? I mean, a different groove, a different spirit, but significantly classic in its own right, man. That's amazing. I don't know if I would have had the confidence to pull that off. So good on you, man. Good on you. It's beautiful, beautiful.
I thought you were going to say the cajones, but confidence. Same
Confidence. That's the erudite version of cojones.
Cajones. Hey, man, listen, Andy, I'm just so grateful, man. I am humbled, by that great music. As you and I both know, that recording, the whole thing pretty much was a remake of the great John Coltrane and Johnny Hartman ballads record,
Right,
and
with some other additions. Right.
yeah. My brother Kevin just came in and just embodied that butter
Amazing. Yeah.
of Johnny Hartman.
I mean, it's absolutely amazing because all kidding aside, that's a difficult thing to do. Enter that kind of space, like just a classic, right? Like a revered space, and do something that is absolutely substantial and on its own right and on its own merit is competes. That's amazing,
Man,
So,
thank you. I think, you do it all the time, Andy. And the song you were playing just before we came on was Killing, I mean, just as an example. But, when you're right, when you're approaching someone else's artistry, it has to just start with the respect, the humility and respect and the authenticity. Like you can do it and you're taking a risk always that it's not going to be as good, right? You just assume it's not going to be as good,
right, right,
because whatever that is, it went before you, it came before you.
right,
But you
right.
can approach that space with humility, respect, authenticity, bring your own voice to it,
Word,
and just let the chips fall where they may. But
beautiful.
my brother Kevin and the arranger, John Stoddard and I arranged the record together, but John Stoddard, who
Yeah,
and he's
John. Yeah, sure. No, John, great talent.
amazing, and amazing piano work. Just again, we can do the arrangements, but when John brings in the voicings that make that stuff real on the piano, and the band, Braylon Lacey, Marcus Finney, Kevin
Yeah,
Turner, all of that factors into everybody entering that space with the same spirit. And we pray before we play a note, and God, would you add that X factor of your presence, your visceral, supernatural presence in the music. And I just believe that's what happened. And it
I,
is, by the way, just so happens, and you picked that record. I look back, and as you can do, right, we look back at our stuff and like you kind of go, well, this one didn't quite, it was
totally.
okay. But this one, I felt like sonically, there's an engineer who mixed that record who passed away just a year ago. His name is Brian Lennox, in Nashville, and Brian's work on that record is just
It,
pristine. And of course,
it is
Nashville is
pristine,
known
man.
for that.
It is pristine. I mean, everything about the record, the presentation of your saxophone sound, right? The description of it, the level, the space, the ambient space, the reverb. I mean, it is just
Man, thank
incredible.
you. And by the way, I mean, I bought this microphone after I did that record. It's Shure KSM 353. It's not. I don't
Yeah,
endorse them, right? So I'm not trying to
yeah,
give them a commercial, but
yeah.
I bought that because I'm like, I want that sound.
Right. Whatever happened here, I want to bring that home. I did.
Right.
Hey, so I want to jump to something quickly and not. I want to tell a story.
Yeah.
Which goes way back, and I've always we've never spoken about this. I don't think I've always been curious as to A, what you were aware of, and B, how you'll remember this, because this is kind of it's going to, I think, be a fun thing, like two people remembering an event from a long time ago and how they remember it similarly or differently. So the story starts like this. It's 1984. I'm in my senior year of college. I'm playing lead alto in the concert jazz band at Miami, which I did for the last 2 years of school. Bob James comes to school. He does a master class. He has a good time. He ends up taking a few of us on the road in early 1984. I go on the road playing alto. Ed Kaya goes on the road playing tenor. A couple other people went on the road. So I'm 21. I'm on the road with Bob James. Boom, right? Playing the chart to touchdown, says David in the right-hand corner. Dave Sanborn, playing David Sanborn's chart. Unbelievable. So we go on the tour. We go here. We go there. We go through Houston, right? And as I remember it, in Houston, there's an opening act. And as I remember it, the venue is in the round, right? So the stage is in the center of the auditorium and the seats are all around. And as I also remember it, the stage was, the seating was tiered upwards and the stage was in the bottom, like kind of a bowl. So what I'm trying to get at quickly is the opening act is playing and I'm with Bob James and we're looking down, we're up. I guess we're in a backstage space, something like that. But I'm standing next to Bob James and a 25-year-old Kirk Whalum is the opening act for Bob James. This is the night that Bob James encountered Kirk Whalum. I'm standing next to Bob James, watching him check you out. I see those gears turning in his head as he watches you. I see those wheels spinning because Bob is a smart and talented man, right? So I observed this in real time, and that is literally, I believe, the night that you met Bob, and the night that began that long association that the two of you had happened right there in front of my eyes. So how much of that is correct, and how much am I, filling in on my own?
Right. I'm laughing because it's like, someone once told me, it's like, yeah, that story you told when you were 25, you're going to tell that story again when you're 50. It's going to be totally different.
Well,
You tell it again at 75, it's going to be different.
so how
No,
much did I get right? Yeah.
you must be a genius, man. I mean, not only a badass saxophone player, you are a genius because that is exactly what happened.
Oh,
And Bob went on, like he would say, years after that, right? In fact, I was with him in Japan this time last year.
right.
I guess maybe January. We played New Year's there on a week or so after, and he said once again, he said, "Yeah, I remember the day." He said because this opening act came on, and this guy who nobody knew, because I was local there in Houston,
Yeah.
played with my band, and he said the audience peaked before I ever walked on stage.
That's what I'm saying. We're standing up wherever we were backstage, and we're looking down, and you are dealing like horn in the air, right? Just like singing. The crowd, like, obviously knew you. They're up in it, and
Well, that's always a part of it, though, isn't it, Andy? Like I had the hometown advantage. Like it was
yeah, but
seriously.
Bob James was mad famous, right? So and you still kind of like took over. So
And he has never forgiven me for it, right? So, and he says, as he tells that story, as I heard him tell it many times, he said, "But I knew exactly what to do." He said, "I'll never let that happen again. I'll hire him."
Exactly. I'll hire him so that he can never be in front of me doing that thing what he did to me, right?
Yeah, like a mobster, like a gang boss, And my band, my poor band is like, "Oh, well, geez, that's great. Now what do we do?"
Right,
But
right. Well,
and I was literally, Andy, I was on a plane not 2 weeks later
yeah.
to record with him, and then after that, I went back and he made a record for me, and then I'm in Japan somewhere. I'm in Indonesia. I'm in France. Hanging out with him.
Happened. Right. Right. Well, I mean, literally, I'm kidding, but I'm not kidding. Like I stood next to Bob James and I watched him watch you. And that's the thing. The thing I remember is like literally those gears turning. I saw it all unfolding in his brain as I watched him watch you. It was amazing. So
there's two things I want to bring out quickly, and that's one. The reason I sounded that good was not so much because I was like doing all that. I mean, I'm grateful I was playing. I was trying my best, but it was a lot because we have been so tight. The band was tight. It was us. We had developed the sound, and when we hit the first note, we were all clicking together, and until the last note. That's A. B, man, there's a young saxophone player right now, maybe listening to us or maybe not, who is probably struggling with, man, I'm just forget it. It's just, there's Gerald Albright, who I'm going to talk about in a minute, and there's Andy Snitzer, and that's like, I'll never be up there. Forget it. But you know what? You can look around. If you're doing your very best job in that, whatever that situation you have, that little restaurant you're playing at, that, playing happy hour, whatever, you will look around and Bob James or whoever that is now will be sitting there and your day will have changed.
This is the truth, man. Like over and over again, you just don't know. And in the most unlikely scenarios, something powerful happens, right? Now yours, that was a bigger venue. It was not a little restaurant, but nonetheless, right? You're a 25-year-old man in Houston, you're doing your thing, and you don't have the expectation that night that the headliner is going to see you and then just whirlwind you into this life, right?
And by the way, that night was part of the whirlwind, Andy, because I was playing at a club, and people always talk about this club called Cody's in Houston.
Right.
Later, it was called Scott Gardner's the something bar or something. But I was playing to those 100 people, those 150 people every night, man, with all my heart. And so this one night, I wasn't playing there. Why? Because I was playing this huge venue called the Arena Theater, opening for Bob James with you guys there. And little did I know, I would have been a lot more nervous if I knew, some bad cats like you.
Well, I don't know, but it all worked out in a beautiful way. The thing that strikes me about the whole thing is that we were all so young. I mean, I was literally 21, right? And that's the first time that I had been on the road. And I'm watching you, like you're like like a relative elder statesman, and you're more assured, and you're the leader of the band, and you're band leading and playing and stuff, and you're all 25, 26, something like that, right? Just completely young, and all those things were happening. It was just an amazing time. But it's the other interesting thing for me is like it's one of those stories, like I see it, it made that impression. Like events in your life they'll leave a visual impression in your mind. I see it. I see you down there. I see Bob next to me. And I've always been struck by how it was. I wasn't a central actor in the story, but nonetheless, it was a powerful thing that was happening in front of me, unfolding. So very, very interesting.
That's amazing. And Andy, I did not know, you had never told me the story that I remember. And
right. You didn't know that until tonight.
Till tonight.
Yeah, fantastic. I love it. So I saw you play when I was 21. I mean, that's why I said I've known Kirk for longer than he probably knows. So
I'm seeing you, I see you out there, in front of 20, 30,000 people playing with these big artists, and then on your own doing your thing. And, and now I had no idea that you were that guy back there.
Yeah. I was literally like a kid. Like we weren't out of school yet. He took us, we got exempted from our classes for 3 weeks. And when that tour was over, we went back to class. Right. We went back to school. That's how young and green I was at the time. But anyway, well, thanks for indulging me on that story. It was really, really exceptional. So what do you want to say about Gerald Albright? You were going to say.
Right. So, Gerald Albright, I wish I was over there right now in Colorado. I told Gerald, I said, what, man, you're a colored man living in a state called colored. And he was like, what are you talking about? I said, oh, you don't even know what Colorado means in Spanish. It means colored, man.
Gerald, you can't defend yourself, man. It's just Kirk and I. We got free reign right now.
And I'm trying to be cool because the minute he gets on there, he's gonna tear me down.
I see Jeff Kosh was in the room too. Great to have you.
Blew me a freaking way the other night, man. He, I cannot wait for Jeff's new record.
Launch. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, his new record. The song he played from that record it just took my breath away. It was so beautiful. Talented man. Great. We got Gerald. We got Jeff. This is fantastic. Amazing. I quit. All right. So let's move to your, because I'm going to spin something from your new record. Let's move to your new music. And this record's been out for I guess actually almost for a year and a half, maybe on the way to a couple of years. But you're still doing great at radio. You and I we're kind of sharing the upper echelons of the XM radio space for a minute. I found that to be charming to be in your company there. But the record is called Humanité, and I looked into the record a bit, and this is a world music project in a sense. It's you intersecting with people all around the world that make music. Would that be an accurate description, or help me to explain it? So, you did it perfectly, Andy. The word humanité, which means humanity, of course, in French, and it's me going around 7, 8 other countries, doing the collaborations with artists half my age. And it's an avuncular project, right? I'm kind of the uncle in the room. And I got a chance to, have this dream, it was my 60th birthday present to myself. I said, you know what? I'm not waiting on anybody. I'm just going to go do this. Because you sort of get like one of those moments, like I'm turning 60. I got to do something. And I just, the Indonesia and Japan and France and Nigeria and Kenya and all
you went to all these places, and you went to all these places and did that work and recorded in those places. Amazing.
And we did a documentary of the making of it, but it would, the filmmaker, Jim Hainan, he just had a big light bulb go off when we were doing it. He said, actually afterwards, when he was putting it together, he said, no, this is a movie called Humanité, the Beloved Community. Because the beloved community, me being from Memphis, and Martin King, was assassinated here, and all the story of him broadening out from the civil rights movement to the global poverty and global, othering and sort of, marginalization of people groups, and how that we are all beloved of God, and we should be loving each other like that, the beloved community. And that's what it turned into. Beautiful. Amazing. So let me spin,
and help me with the pronunciation. This is Kuwaitu. Would that be?
That's perfect. Kuwaitu.
And this features a Kenyan pianist named Aaron. Is it Rimbui?
You are on it, man. That's exactly. In fact, he's down the street from you right now. He's from Kenya, but he lives in New York.
Oh, amazing. Okay, so let's take a listen to this. It's a great track. It's an interesting track. It features Kirk, of course, but it has some interesting sonic elements. And then Aaron Rimbui on piano. So I'm gonna stereo real quick and let's take a listen. Man, that's a great track. And
Thank you.
the African influence in the ensemble parts is so evident. But Aaron plays he plays a ton.
He's a bad cat, man.
Feel and harmony and amazing. But
And it's his song.
It's his song. It's gorgeous. So let me use this as a jumping off point to geek out a little bit. Steve Cole, what's up, man? Hey,
I see Stevie. I just texted him, man.
There he is. All right, beautiful.
Yeah.
Everyone's showing up tonight for you, man.
That's a bad cat, man.
That means something. That means something. Take that bang. And Mark Douthit from Nashville is here, a great saxophone player.
Another bad cat.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
That's fantastic, man. There he is. What's up, Mark?
Oh man.
So
handsome devil.
let me so here's the thing, man. Like, you know, in trying to like find your influences in my mind, right? Like your thing is so interesting because I can't, most people you can kind of like, okay, they're a contemporary saxophone player. I can kind of find their influences rather easily, right? Or their main influences kind of like, even when they've got their own thing honed, their main influences kind of stick out just a bit. Like, and that's all fine. My thing, like people are definitely going to say Brecker and Sanborn. That's going to stick out, right? It's I know it's a lesser thing, but it's I have a thing that's my thing. But people hear that sticking out. You, man, I can't get it. I can't like. I keep coming back to like Plaz Johnson, who that is not like. I mean, that's a beautiful, incredible player, right? But I can't figure out like who your main guy was or your main couple guys were. So. Yeah. Fill me in, man. Like how did you come to be you?
Well, you know, Steve Cole, man, was my main influence. You know? And Mark Douthit. Oh, what do you mean? Come on. But let me say this really quickly. That Kuwaitu, that song was more than just a song. It was, you know, we were there in Kenya to record, you know, a couple of artists, you know, and just so excited to be there. But I'd had a chance to hear these kids called Ghetto Classics. And it's basically kids from a neighborhood called Kodogocho in Nairobi. And these kids, and when you say have nothing, they have everything, right? Because they have love, the love of God and love of community. And it's just the most amazing thing. But other than that, they have nothing. And I mean, shanties, you know, they barely subsistence. It's terrible. Living basically adjacent to the city dump. And they burn the trash in the city dump, and that trash, that smell wafts over into there every day, all day, all night. It's just the worst, man. And again, it's also the best. But those kids, when you hear that song, you're literally hearing them playing their instruments. So for us, you know, our kids complain, I don't want to go to my lesson. These kids cannot wait to get into this place called Ghetto Classics and get their instruments, because they have to keep them locked up, right? Because, you know, around that type of poverty, many times there's desperation and there's a lot of crime. And man, so they get in there, those instruments, they open them up like a solid gold, and they practice their instruments, and it's just, you can hear them, you know, they go the bop, you know, playing their little violins and their trumpets, and you know, they're barely getting the sound. And we had them in the studio. They were like, "Whoa, what's this?" You know, there's microphones and stuff like. Well, how does that work? It was so wonderful, man.
Amazing.
I want to mention that first.
Oh, of course. And all those ensemble parts that we're hearing are kids.
Those are kids, man. That's why when people say, "Oh, that trumpet player must have had a bad day," no, he's 12.
So I thought it was just, you know, like being around some African musicians in Paul Simon's band and being, you know, having some exposure to that tradition. I thought it was just like a stylistic thing. And, you know, and a localized thing, but those are kids.
Those are kids, man. I mean, the rhythm sections, obviously we did, but man, those kids just blew me away. I think we can talk about that later.
That's so beautiful that you brought them to the
man. I'm just so honored, you know. And Elizabeth, their director, is amazing. But anyway, so influences. You know, I will say that my primary influence, being in Memphis, was gospel singers.
Right.
So, you know, the great Deborah Thomas, you know, when she sang Precious Lord, Take My Hand, I'm like, every single time she sings that, I'm crying. I'm like, so, and I heard it before, you know, but it's that conviction with which she sang that thing. And I knew that it was more than notes. It was more than taking lessons, which I did at University of Memphis. All the stuff I was trying to do, like I was supposed to do, but it was that gospel, the conviction of relationship, horizontal and vertical relationships. It was that 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 basically coalesced, in my sound. I was listening to two guys who I ended up going to school where they went. I went to Texas Southern, Wilson Felder and Ronnie Laws.
Dig it.
Okay.
I
And
get
then I was listening to Stanley Turrentine,
I get that. Right.
and so literally my dad was a pastor. The secretary of the church said, well, you need to listen to these guys. And she put on Gene Ammons and Sunday and Stanley Turrentine. It's like,
Right.
so that was, and I'll end by saying that I met Everett Harp around the time that I was teaching in the summer jazz workshop in Houston. He was a student. I was 20, he was 15. When he
Right.
started playing, I'm like, okay, how about you be the teacher and I'll be the student? but he and I were both smitten by the great Arnett Cobb.
Incredible player. Right.
Yeah. So
Okay.
so Arnett Cobb out of Houston, 4 blocks from Texas Southern.
Incredible player.
Personally got to hang out with him. So that's
You hung out with Arnett Cobb.
This is Arnett Cobb. His daughter found me and gave me this ring when I was, I couldn't make the funeral because I was in Japan, but
Yeah.
she knew that I wanted to be there because he was my heart, and because I had played for him in the ICU. I just played the nearness of you and just bawl like a baby. She found me after that, like a month or so. I came to play a festival, and we're hugging, and I see she's holding my hands, and I'm like, okay, what are you doing? And she put this ring on my finger, and that's where it is.
That's unbelievable. I'm jealous of you knowing him, man. That's a bad dude.
Ooh.
But it's interesting that you said what you say is interesting to me because it's basically that Southern thing, that Texas thing, right? Married with the gospel singer thing, and then obviously married with a study of jazz, right? With a technical study and a technical study of the saxophone. But the thing I was going to say was like that Texas thing is generally associated with more of like just a boom, right? Like immediately assertive thing. And I was thinking about this before we were going to hang out, like, and I like the way you enter a space, right? It reminds me of like the way Steve Gadd's bass drum hit me the first time I played with Paul Simon, because it's not loud, right? It's not like I'm here, boom. It's like this, wrap your arms around the whole MFer, right? Wrap your sound around the whole thing and grab it and hold it, right? Like a minister, like a preacher, like, and you, that's a thing that you have, man, which is a unique thing. Cause you don't have to enter a space, like even a musically aggressive space with like, an immediate, like, here I am. You can kind of just do this like this warm thing and wrap yourself around it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a very specific you thing as I hear it. So
well, I will say when I hear you describe it, Andy, you make me think of Arnett. You make me miss him because that's precisely what he did, and not just him. I mean, just you could go down the line. Eric could name him, better than me, but
right.
you go down the line of those Texas tenors. I mean, Fathead Newman. I mean, it's another one. It's just it's an empathy, and a conviction. Like
Right.
these are non-musical terms, right? But I think it's important for a young player to hear these,
Right.
Because that's really the substance of what a person is saying. Arnett Cobb, when I first, played for him, I'm like playing my stuff. He said, "Okay, all right, that's enough." He cut me off. He
Right.
said, "Yeah, you playing a bunch of notes, but you ain't saying a damn thing."
Right.
And so that was it.
That all got worked out, man. Like him saying it, or you on your pathway. That all got worked out completely because
it hurt my feelings so bad.
But now you say a whole bunch. You say a whole bunch with like I'm saying that just that you're right. It's an emotional thing. It's an emotional space thing. It's almost not even a musical thing.
And I would add, I would say that it's undergirded by a spiritual thing, that the empathy that, we think of a cross, right? Like the empathy of the horizontal human to human is supported by the vertical where the empathy of God, where God just doesn't say, well, I sympathize with you. But as a Christian, I believe that he empathized, that he actually sent somebody to be there with and for us. And so that empathy, that it turns into a conviction that permeates your music.
It's amazing, man. It's amazing. I mean, it's excuse me, you articulate it so well. It's so obviously true and so obviously running through you, right? And that I'm gonna think on that, because I actually kind of feel like a deficit in myself in a way, in that way, when I hear you speak like that. So I'm gonna think about that from myself. But anyway, so why don't we check out another cut, and maybe after checking out another cut, then we'll get a few questions from the crowd. Give Gerald a chance to come back.
He just told me, man, he's got a headache, so I think he might be down for the night. But
he's out of here. All right. Well, then it's just like that. All right, cool. So let's take a listen to this next track. This obviously features Marcus Miller, and I'm going to let you pronounce the title so I don't butcher it.
Well, I said it actually while we were talking. I said Kodogocho, because Kodogocho is the neighborhood in Nairobi, Kenya, where the kids from that school, and Marcus has been there. John Stoddard, Norman Brown, Rick Braun, Jonathan Butler. A lot of my friends have been to Kodogocho, and I'm hoping that you will go. And everybody in the world needs to go. But you can Google Ghetto Classics Kenya, and you can hear them. But Kodogocho, yeah, Marcus, yeah. And it's actually Marcus as well as a bass player from Indonesia. We got to just match them up and do a mashup of the two bass players.
That's amazing, because I kind of thought it was Marcus like playing two different instruments, trading with himself, but it's an Indonesian bass player that's obviously influenced by him. That's fantastic.
His name is Barry Likamahua.
That's so great. So let's check that out. And I was also going to say, for the musicians and saxophone players out there, there's a really cool blues scale sleight of hand that goes on compositionally on this tune. It's really cool. When I first heard it, I was like, I'm not going to go figure out what that is. So I went and figured out what it was. But see, you guys will hear it, but it's very interesting. I haven't heard anything exactly like this before. So, all right, here we go. Title one more time, Kirk.
Kodogocho.
Thank you, brother. All right, here comes tune. Man, that's fun. I love that little half step move, man. I love that little basically, folks, basically it's B flat minor concert, then B minor, it's a little B minor, you know, but really the 4 chord and 5 chord. But anyway, that's a super cool little move and a great track. And how did Barry feel about going at Marcus Miller? Like,
Well, that's the thing. I didn't tell him.
Hey, you snuck it. You snuck it.
I wasn't about to tell him, man. I'm like, I bet this kid is probably gonna play totally different if he knows that I'm gonna mash it. Or my producer James McMillan and I
have freaked out, you know.
Right, you know,
out, right.
James McMillan from England is the producer, great producer. But he and I both like, oh yeah, we're gonna mash these guys up. they won't know what hit them. And Marcus was, of course, is so good natured about any of that kind of stuff. So it was just great.
Right. No, that's a lot of fun. And you know, all that great bass playing at the end, we don't want to lose track of that. You dealing on soprano, right?
Well, let me say, you know, that this is the spirit of Humanité, of this project, and we want to do another one. We want to have, actually, we're trying to do a TV show out of it, where it's kind of, Anthony Bourdain does music instead of food. You know, where you're proving a point. The greater narrative is that we're so very diverse and different, but we're all the same, man. We all have the same needs and hurts and everything. So, beloved community, man.
Oh, I hope that happens. That sounds like a beautiful idea. As much as I love food, I've seen all his episodes. It'd be great to see something like that, but on the musical tip. So.
Well, of course, and we ate a lot of food, you know, during the process.
Amazing, man. I'm going to get really jealous if you start talking about that. What you got privy to. But hey, Kirk, before you split, I don't want to take too much of your time. Do you have time to entertain a few questions from the adoring populace? Because I'm sure we're going to have some questions from fans of music fans and also saxophone geeks alike. Because I know there's some saxophone geeks in the room. I see them. But
the adoring populi.
Thank you.
That would be one person.
I thank you. I love being corrected, and I know you can do it in 3 languages, so that's additionally nerve-wracking.
I was making a joke, man.
No, that's great, man. Fantastic. It's fantastic. So, hey, Daniel, can you curate a couple questions for us for Kirk? Boom. Look at that, Daniel, on the spot.
You, Daniel, you bad
I want
cat.
to know if Kirk has ever played the wrong note while playing live. I'm going to say no. I've never played the wrong note, so I want to know if Kirk is human or not. That's a damn good question. So,
Has Kirk ever played the right note live? You know? Yeah, so one thing about doing this type of thing with another saxophone player is that Andy knows that man, you just go out there and you tighten your belt and you try to get some good notes in, and you're hoping to say something important, as we talked about earlier. But it is a part of it is the longer you do it, the quicker you are to head off something at the past. If you see, like, if you play a wrong note, you take that wrong note and you make it a part of the story.
definitely.
And it just becomes seasoning, right?
Definitely. And that's kind of like the confidence of time and experience. You don't crumble if you step off the rails for a second. You don't crumble. You just like, okay, came off the rails, but that's not going to end me. I'm back in the game. So
But I love that metaphor because it really does. Like when people say, well, why do you contort? You guys, your legs are all and your arms, and you're all like falling backwards. It is like that, like the rail. I hadn't thought of it like that, but like you're like trying to balance, you're just about to fall.
Totally. I mean, that the art of improvisation is a tight wire, act in a way. I mean,
I'm stealing that, man.
It's learned knowledge, but when people do it well, it's not just a rote expression of their learned knowledge, right? It's all that learned knowledge thrown into the hopper. It's coming out in real time. So,
and it's risky. The thing about improvisation is spontaneous composition is risky because if you can write stuff and go back and fix it and then change. I'm gonna go here instead of there, and then if you can write it out, that's great. Chopin, and all that. But you're on the spot, so if you screw it up, you got to figure out how to make it right, and that's where you feel like the rail is.
Absolutely, that's absolutely true. All right, Daniel, hit us with another question, please. Daniel's back there, like,
man, that cat.
Eden's great saxophone player too. Yeah. Join at the Hip, was that co-writing, James, or who wrote those melodies?
Yes, Bob and I just split up that record. It was Bob James. It was supposed to be. It was a sort of consummation of our relationship in the sense that he discovered me and produced my first 3 records, and I toured with him and his band, and then at this later date, years and years later, he said, let's do a collaboration record. He did Bob James, David Sanborn, which of course won Grammys, and it's like the most amazing record ever.
Most amazing record.
And so, we said, well, let's at least get in there and do one like, in the same way where you are on this side, I'm on that side, and you write songs, I write songs. So I was writing with him in mind, and he was writing with me in mind. And it just was a beautiful experience. And they just re-released that record on another label in Japan, and I think it's also available here. But we went to Japan this time last year, as I said, to celebrate that, and we had a ball.
Amazing. My friend Myron, who's a great saxophone player, has this question. Please, could you tell us about the first meeting performance with Whitney Houston? And so I'm interested in that. The solo you played famously on her song is in the upper firmament of pop saxophone solos, of the 8-bar solo idea. So would you comment on that?
Well, first of all, Myron Walden is a bad cat, and don't think we don't know who you are, brother. And by so the Whitney, first of all, you mentioned Plas Johnson, and I have to just sneak this in quickly and say that I didn't hear him I didn't know I was listening to him on the Marvin Gaye song "If I Should Die Tonight." Sure, he played on a lot of his music, but that is my all-time favorite solo. Period.
Okay, so I wasn't off the mark then. All right.
No, not at all. I mean, when I hear him, it takes my breath away. Plas Johnson, he's passed away. God bless him. Yeah. But the solo that I played on "I Will Always Love You," apparently, Matt Pearson told me this, is the saxophone solo that's been heard by more people than any other saxophone solo in history.
I completely believe it.
Which is a scary thought, right? So I'm thinking, Wayne Shorter, I'm thinking Coltrane, whatever. Yeah. But I think the part about it that Whitney insisted that we be there. She first of all insisted to the director of the movie that she had to sing the song live. That was a very big deal. They said no, and no again and no again. And finally she said, oh, well, you know what? If you really mean no, I need to add this other thing. I want my band to play live as I sing live. And guess what? If you don't say yes to both those things, you need to find a singer.
And she won that battle.
She won that battle. And so Beth Sussman and Ricky Minor, God bless him for even introducing me to her, and Ricky Lawson and Paul Jackson Jr. and all the great band members. We were there, Bashiri, because she insisted. And so we're there. When you see the movie, you can't see us, but I promise you we're there behind that big, thick curtain so that they could isolate her voice.
Right. Playing live.
We're playing live, man.
I mean,
and the first, quickly, the first take is what you hear on that record and you see in the movie. And it was literally that, the rough mix, right? I mean, see, you do this all the time. When you do a recording and you listen to a rough mix, that's just this is what we did. Later, we're going to rip it apart. We're going to fix the kick. We're going to add this EQ. We're going to blah.
Right.
Clive Davis didn't let him touch the rough mix is what the record is, man.
Amazing. Well, that means he heard something special in exactly what was presented. And, I mean, Clive doesn't need to go in and mess around with engineering, right? If it's moving him, it's moving him. So
don't touch it. There's he took that digital audio tape. I bet he probably put it in a vault. Don't touch it.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, he could easily make the argument that he knows, right? His career makes the argument that he knows when he hears whatever that thing he's hearing, he knows he's right. And in this case, history says he was right. Like, wow, that's an amazing story. All right, Daniel, what else you got for us? Roll those dice. All right, there's Mark. Kurt, many years ago, something in your playing gave me the best advice of my career, and that was that you never get in a hurry. Taking that with me most of my playing life. Great advice.
Oh man, Mark, and I wish people could be hearing him play right now as they listen to that, because I mean, you hear him with Michael McDonald, you hear him on all these great records, and it's just such a sweet sound, sweet man. But so I do believe in that, Mark. I believe that the courage, Whitney had this saying. She used to say, "Can I be me?" She would say it, like, "Hey, can I be me?" Right. And it was it was kind of tongue in cheek, but it's a very heavy question. And I think, you see it directed out at other people, like, hey, just let me be myself. And that makes a lot of sense. But sometimes you need to direct it inside. Like, do you have the courage to just be you? And I'm hearing all these great saxophone players. I'm hearing Melissa Aldana, and I'm hearing Tia Fuller, and I'm hearing all these bad cats, Jeff Coffin.
Right.
And you just go, shit, I want to play like that, Right. But the thing is that you're not going to, it's like you're sliding around until you lock into who you actually are. Right. And if that's not a person who can play this really fast, or this, if that's not who you are, that's just not who you are. You just got to be you. And when you lock into just being you, people will hear it and they'll feel it.
This is truth. And part of the process of getting to that are those experimentations. Can I play fast? Can I play a lot of harmony? Can I play softly? Can I play loud? What and that should be the experimentation, right? What feels Absolutely. Right to me, and you bounce off of all those things, and then you find it. This resonates. This resonates with me as me, and you go there because you have no other choice. You have no other choice. You can't be your heroes. They already came through. They already did them, right? And that's such an important lesson. There are people out there in the world, and I don't mean any disrespect by any of this, because people study and strive, and it's all beautiful. But I'll hear a saxophone player right on the internet somewhere in the world, and they're killing, right? But it's mostly Mike Brecker, right? It's 55% Mike Brecker and 45% them. Ultimately, when you get out past the student phase, you can't do that. You just can't do it, right? I'm getting long-winded, but it's exactly what you said. You can't do it because it's not a truth. It's not a truth. The truth is you finding that slot for you, whatever that is. That's the truth. And when you can lay in that lane and express yourself, you have a chance, right, of being meaningful. You have a chance of touching somebody, of being heard by somebody for you. So,
and by the way, that doesn't mean, as you intimated, Andy, that doesn't mean you don't go over here and do this and do that and play some, salsa or
yeah,
whatever you want to play. But, as far as like your identity, you have to just be comfortable in your skin and let people
right,
just
right.
take it or leave it.
And you as a young person, you learn what that skin is by bouncing off those different walls, right? And if you have an honest response to that, right? So if you you hit a wall and it's not your wall and it hurts, it bruises your shoulder, right? You leave it be. You don't keep smacking against it, right? You leave it be for someone else. Find your spot. That's sage advice, man. That's the super important advice. All right, Kirk, let's take one more lucky question, and then I'm going to let you get on your way and do your thing. Does that sound cool?
Man, that's awesome. And I'm looking at Mark Harper, another great Texas musician, man. Are there any plans for continuing the gospel according to jazz? The series we did chapter 1 through 4. We had George Duke on chapters 1 through 3, Jonathan Butler, Layla Hathaway, Falling in Love with Jesus. The song went around the world, written by the great Jonathan Butler and sung by him. So we want to do chapter 5 in South Africa. We've been talking to some folks about that. We almost had it going and the pandemic happened, but that is a yes, Mark. We are committed to doing that. And, as you know, it's not a gospel record, per se, as much as it is a jazz record, serving as a conduit for, or a sort of a vehicle for the message of the gospel, God's self-giving love manifest through Christ. And so, yeah, that's what I've always been about. That, Mark, and can't wait to get back to it.
Beautiful. Well, hey, man, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here and giving up your time. I say this every week. I'm blessed by these great artists and friends of mine and great artists and saxophone peers being willing to give their time and come into this space and express themselves and tell their story. It's a great gift. So thank you for doing that.
I'm not done yet, Andy.
Come on, here we go.
Woo!
Woo! Boom. After all that saxophone talk, grab the flute and break it like that. I love it, man. I love it. I love it. So, hey, man, congratulations on your fantastic career. I love that I was there, not the beginning of it, but kind of the beginning of it. I was there to witness. I love that story. I love that I was able to share.
We are joined at the hip, brother.
Totally. I love that you didn't know the story. I love that now you know the story, and it is indelible in my mind. It is a visual memory that I have. So fantastic after all these years. But thank you again. And I hope to see you soon when the world resumes out there playing together. Kirk and I played together a couple of years ago at Berks Festival on a Grover tribute. It's so amazing with Everett and Gerald. It's so amazing to play with these great artists. But anyway, congratulations on all the success. Thank you for being here. Be well, and we'll see you soon.
Much success on your series, Andy. It's awesome. And
thank you very much.
I love you, brother. I'll see you later.
Love you too, Kirk. All right, Daniel, take Kirk on out of here.
See you then.
Kirk. Wow, that's amazing. He is such a great artist, such a great saxophone player, such a great man. It's really I'm just as we say in my faith, well, my people, really, I'm kvelling that he came into the space and hung out with me. It's amazing. That's Yiddish for those of you that don't know. Probably a lot of you do, but amazing that Kirk was here. So I'm going to be back in a couple weeks. I'm going to have for the first time the return of one of my former guests. I'm not going to mention who it was, but this former guest, when we first hung out, he wasn't in a position to play live with track. He's revamped his tech, worked it, gotten all up to speed, and wants to come back and play the track. So in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be doing that. A return of one of my guests from prior, significant artist and saxophone player. He's going to play live the track. I'm going to have a cocktail and kick back while he does that, and maybe do a little interview, but mostly just enjoy myself. So that will be March 11th, 2 weeks from today, and we'll break out who that is exactly in the coming weeks and days. But right now, we'll just keep that a secret. So hope to see you all there. Thank you again for being here. It's my great pleasure to share this space with you and this time with you, and I'm thankful for you and thankful for these great artists that make it possible. So I will I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Everybody be well. Spring is coming. Feel that in the air. Talk to you soon. Daniel, take me on out. Bye, everybody.